One of the finalists to be Trump's vice president just got confronted like you've never seen before. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem claims in her new book that she met North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The only problem? It never happened. Though reporters have been pressing Governor Noem about this lie, no one has cornered her like Elizabeth Vargas from News Nation. Elizabeth Vargas confronted Governor Noem with a piece of evidence that exposes her as a total fraud. With nowhere to run, watch how Kristi Noem melts down in real time.
But clearly, if you're taking it out of the book, it's because it's untrue.
I've given you my answer, no, and that's not the answer. I would say that, this is something that I asked to have adjusted and have the content and that name removed, and that is truly what the action has been.
You said when you learned of it, you immediately took action. You recorded the whole book and the audiobook. You read this whole passage out loud. Why didn't you take it out then when you read the audiobook?
I've traveled for years. I've been involved in policy for almost 30 years. And so I've gone all across the world. I've met with world leaders.
So you didn't realize when you recorded the audiobook?
When it was brought to my attention, and I asked the publisher if they would remove the name, and they did.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. When you posted pictures and video of yourself recording the audiobook. When you recorded your own audiobook, you didn't notice
I'm
this
not going to
passage?
discuss about my meetings with world leaders.
I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you about recording the audiobook.
Did you want to talk about something else today?
No, I just wanted to know. We're just trying to get a straight answer from it. This has been...
Well, you did. And I took responsibility for it.
Wow, Governor Noem claims that when the discrepancy in the book was brought to her attention, she asked the publisher to remove it. But Elizabeth Vargas brilliantly confronted her with the fact that she recorded the audiobook and therefore would have been fully aware of the statement in the book before it was published. Kristi Noem has no response to this except to say some nonsense about not wanting to discuss her meetings with foreign leaders. How pathetic. However, over on Newsmax, host Eric Bolling gave Kristi Noem a lifeline. He tried to spin a conspiracy theory that the editor of the book might have been trying to set up Kristi Noem. Watch how he sets up this pathetic excuse to help Kristi, but she completely fumbles it.
I've also written a couple of books, and I know how the process works. You write some chapters. You don't write the whole book at once. You write a chapter or two. You send it to the editors, and they edit. They read it. They add. They subtract. And here's my question. The editor, was she possibly a liberal plant? Because I'm not sure either one of these stories, the dog story, the North Korea story, seems like the Kristi Noem I know.
No, the buck always stops with me. I take my own full responsibility. I wrote this book, and I take the responsibility for what's in it. It's a great book, Eric. I hope everybody reads it and buys it.
Poor Eric Bolling tried his hardest, but she failed miserably. And now it seems like Fox News and Newsmax have given up on Kristi. First, Fox Business asked Kristi if she is no longer a top contender for Trump's VP slot. And they asked her to disclose the details of a recent conversation with Trump. Watch how mad Kristi gets with this host. You'd think she was being interviewed on CNN with the way she reacts.
Still think that you are in line to be Trump's vice president?
No, it's up to Donald Trump. He's the only person who will decide this. He's the only person who will decide. And yes, I do speak to him.
May I ask what he said to you about being vice president?
No, I never tell anybody my personal conversations with
Did the dog story
President
come up
Trump.
in a conversation with
I talk to President Trump all the time.
About the dog?
About a lot of things. And right now, I tell you what, he is being persecuted in a political witch hunt in this court case. So I'm proud of him about how tough he is and how well he is doing.
Did you bring up the dog?
Yes, enough, Stuart.
Did you
this
bring
interview
up the dog
is ridiculous, what you were doing right now. So you need to stop. It is.
Okay.
It is. Let's talk about some real topics that Americans care about.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, well, of course we are.
We do thank you for being with us.
And now even Newsmax is calling her a liar. You know your career as a MAGA loser is in trouble when the fakest news channel on air is calling you a liar. Good grief.
But going back to what you said a moment ago, maybe not lying to the American people. And I think this is important to talk about because the book's called No Going Back, The Truth on What's Wrong with Politics. And I think part of the problem with politics today is that politicians aren't honest with the American people. So if you asked me a month ago, who's at the top of the list to run with Donald Trump, I would have said your name. If you asked me that same question this morning, I don't even think you're on the list.
Really?
So my question
And
for
why
you,
is that?
yes, really, and it's because of things that have come out in this book, like your claims that you met Kim Jong-un And then
I've
over
been
the
to
last
the
week,
DMZ.
I've
I've been to the DMZ. I've been to that area. What I've
did
said
you
is
stare
that
down Kim Jong
what
Un?
I've said
Let me, Governor, 1 second. I will give you an opportunity to respond. I just want to get this out there. So here's the quote from the book. You say that, I remember when I met North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un. I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. Governor, that never happened, did
What
it?
I have said in the book is that when I became aware of the content, that we had it changed. And that's the way that it is. So I should not have put that anecdote in the book. That I'm not going to
But
talk
an
about my
anecdote
meetings.
indicates that it happened,
I'm
right?
not going to talk about my conversations with world leaders. I've been involved in policy for 30 years. For 30 years, I've been traveling the world, talking to world leaders. And that is a conversation that I'm not going to have in this book.
It has been a rough week for Kristi Noem, but I'm willing to bet Trump doesn't mind her lies at all. In fact, he probably likes that she's trying to get away with lies because that's what he does for a living. And remember, the competition to become Trump's VP is reaching a fever pitch. These MAGA ghouls like Kristi Noem are trying to prove that they are the worst of the worst in order to impress Donald Trump. This is the worst episode of The Apprentice that the world has ever seen. Hopefully, it all comes to an end soon with Trump losing in November and we can all move on.